Okay, the time being 10:04, I'm going to convene this meeting of the Commission on Worldwide Combined Reporting for Unitary Businesses under the Business Profits Tax. We are expecting Representative Allery will attend this morning, and that would give us and here he is, and we now have a quorum. I'm one sentence in, Jordan. And we know that Mr. Kennedy is not present, but he, of course, has reviewed the report drafts and will weigh in subsequent to this meeting. We've we have minutes for 3 meetings, and I'd like to begin by reviewing those. So we have the minutes for the meeting of October 2nd, October 17th, and October 23rd. And has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are we prepared to make a motion to accept the minutes of October 2nd?
I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to approve the minute.
Okay, motion from Representative Schamberg. Second from Senator Murphy. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. There were 2 typos that Representative Schamberg will correct. Not worth talking about. Then we have the minutes of October 17th. And the only change I've requested is there's a reference in parentheses in the draft on page 2 to attached is oral presentation for commission. That'll be deleted. So we're not going to add notes of an oral presentation. Okay, do we have any questions on these minutes? Ready for a motion? Thank you. Motion from Senator Murphy. Second from Representative Allery. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes of October 17th are accepted. And third, we have the minutes from October 23rd, prepared by Representative Allery. And they are brief and succinct. Any questions? Okay.
I'll second that motion.
We
so
have
I
a
can learn
motion
from the master on this one.
and a second. All those in favor? Say aye. And opposed? Okay. Great. It's always nice to start with minutes, and we've got momentum. Okay. I sent out a update on Friday morning, further last evening around 7, and then a final around 11 that incorporated very few changes I can point to in the event that anyone didn't see what went out that late. I think our business for today is to take any comments, any discussion regarding the draft. And also we can turn to Representative Schamberg at an appropriate point for any comments he wants to make regarding his minority report. Yes, Representative Allery.
I thank the chair for putting together a pretty good, a very good historical analysis of both the issue in front of us and the actions of this particular commission. Appreciate that. I think that for the remainder of the day, if we begin on page 8, because everything prior to that
Yes.
is historical.
Yes.
I don't, without object, if there's an objection.
I think that's a
would
that's a
agree
good
to it.
plan. I would just ask quickly. We have now had the process and procedures and the testimony and record in front of us from a prior meeting. There were very small edits that were essentially grammatical typo spelling. I very much thank Keen Wong for contributing to that editing process, and I found a whole bunch of my own. But unless there are any specific questions relating to the testimony and record, I just look for those first, and then I agree with Representative Ulrey. We can jump to page 8 where the findings begin. Okay, we're all set then on the process and on the record. Representative Ulrey.
Following up on that discussion, it appears the way that this is was created is that there is a finding and there's a historical analysis of the finding. And I think that the historical analysis, there may be a word or two here, but the historical analysis is pretty stated. And the finding itself, the bolded areas, the numerical numbers, the bullet points, are the ones that we should primarily focus on.
Okay, good point. Yeah, and I would just point out, I think it's obvious to those of us who, members who've been reading this, but for the record, the purpose and the testimony and record are intended to be completely neutral, just narrative. The findings represent conclusions of the commission at large. So they make judgments, but they're judgments as to which we, I believe, have come to a consensus. In fact, I believe the minority is probably in harmony and will let us know if he's not on the findings. So the findings are organized around the draft that Mr. Foley and Mr. Kennedy prepared to, represent the filtered conclusions of the commission as to the state of affairs, the landscape within which we're examining this. They are not intended to be, argumentative, and I think that they're not controversial. In contrast, if you jump over to page 15, the analysis which was added yesterday and the recommendations which were added Friday morning are the judged conclusions of the majority and would be in contrast to the position of the minority. Okay, is that fairly delineated? So with that, unless somebody else wants to make general comments, let's just go to page 9. And as Representative Ulrey has suggested, let's just read each bolded finding, and we won't wade into the discussion unless somebody points to something that they question. Is that good?
Before you go on.
Yes. Representative Schambert.
Yes. I sent a final draft to Jen with attachments. Will those be distributed electronically, or should we do it paper-wise?
I think if we could have a printed copy here with us this morning, that would be great. Good. Glad to know that's been sent. Right. You've sent it to Jen, so we haven't seen it, but we will see it
Right,
when
it's basically the things that we've covered. And where would that go into this report? It won't go into the memorandum. It'll be included in the reports, right?
Yes, I'm going to ask Jen to help me make sure this is formatted correctly, but this 16-page document that we have in front of us will be the commission's report.
Okay.
The commission's report will include the minority report as the first attachment, and it will include the bibliography. The narratives on page 2 to 8 addresses basically the testimony and the record from those who appeared before us. There are references to other collateral documents, court cases, articles in the findings, all of which and many more of those are included in the bibliography. And unless the commission members ask and decide to do this, it's not currently my intent to attach any collateral documents like articles or cases to the report, but rather to let the bibliography lead anybody who wants to go further to find them. Okay, Representative Ullery?
Like you've done 1 or 2 papers.
Had a little practice.
And I noticed there were no footnotes.
That's
So
true.
rather than the footnoting, we're putting this in the bibliography at the end.
Yes, that's a very good point. So, references. I did not write this like a legal brief, right? Where we cited a court case, I do give in parentheses, where we've quoted, I give in parentheses the actual citation of that volume and page for the U.S. Supreme Court or for the New Hampshire Supreme Court. With respect to those who testified in the record, the references and the quotes are all to the body of what they physically presented to us, and that's in the record, which of course is also accessible on the General Court's website. As far as external articles, I referred to the article. The citation itself is in the bibliography. And so there was no effort to indicate where a quote came from a particular page, but there is an effort to indicate what speaker or what document that came from. Okay. But so the citations, I think, are loose in terms of, if you compare this to a legal opinion or a scholarly article, but I believe that they all do lead you exactly to where those quotes came from. Yes, Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a quick question on the attachment that was sent out by Jen on Friday from Representative Schomburg on the glossary of terms. How is that going to be incorporated into the report?
I haven't seen that.
That's one, I was sent that last week.
On Friday, yeah.
Send it to Jen. She'll be bringing it in.
Okay, we'll see that in a little bit, and then I think, can we circle back to your question? I haven't seen.
I did not send direct to you. I sent anything to Jen to send it out, whether she did or not.
Okay, well, that's not something that I've seen, but we will see it this morning, and so we can circle back, right? Okay, good. So, and we don't need to labor this more than you want to, since you've all read it. But in fact, yeah, I don't think I need to actually read the bolded part, but let's go to number 1. The point here is that while there was a statute on the books from 81 to 86 on worldwide combined reporting, it was never implemented. And so there is no actual precedent for this program in the state, despite the fact that it was on the books. Are we good with that? Yes, Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just going into the discussion in the below the bullet point, below the bullet point, and I think it's based on the memo, and this is in regards to New Hampshire not enforcing the worldwide combined reporting in relations to foreign-based multi-corporation.
The letter of Commissioner
Yeah,
Price.
the letter from Commissioner Price to the Worldwide Unitary Taxation Working Group Task Force back in 1983. So I think that's fine because that's what's stated in the letter. I just wanted to check if later down in the middle of the section in the paragraph where it says in the testimony from Commissioner Price back in 1986 on the implementation of the water's edge limitation, it says right, wrong, or indifferent, and then in brackets, in parentheses, the DRA never did go totally worldwide. We never did tax foreign dividends from foreign parents. We never taxed foreign parents. So I wonder if that was meant to say like New Hampshire never did go worldwide, as opposed to the DRA never did go totally worldwide. I'm not sure if that's more accurate.
Are you asking what's the we he's referring to?
Yeah, so in parentheses, the DRA never did go worldwide. So I wonder if that's an added term in there from the testimony.
Okay, so this is a direct quote, but
Yeah.
you'll see in bracket the DRA.
Yeah.
Because the word he used is we. And I just inserted using brackets the
Oh.
DRA because that's what he meant by we.
Okay, I was wondering if he meant the New Hampshire never did go worldwide totally, because that's what his written testimony was in the letter.
He did mean New Hampshire, but are you saying that you think it should be stated New Hampshire instead of the DRA,
That's my thought. I'm not.
the state rather than
Yeah.
the
Right,
agency?
yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
What does the letter say itself?
It says on point number 5, New Hampshire takes the position that since the United States Supreme Court has never yet ruled on the constitutionality of subjecting a foreign-based multinational corporation doing business in the United States to worldwide combined reporting, it will not require nor accept a petition to file a combined report.
Let's
From
just be
the
clear
foreign
that the first of the quotes, the one you've just read again,
Yeah,
comes from the letter dated November 30th, 1983.
that's right.
And that's clearly cited here.
Yep.
And the second quote comes from his testimony before the House Ways and Means Committee on
Yep.
February 20th, 1986.
Right.
Right. So I think the only question you're asking is where we're picking up on his quote and it's saying we, that you feel more comfortable inserting that we means New Hampshire.
Yeah, so I wasn't present at that time. I'm not sure if he meant we as in the DRA or as in the state.
I don't think it makes a big difference, but I believe he was speaking as commissioner for the agency.
Right. Yeah.
So we know what the law said,
Yeah.
but the agency took a position, and it wasn't even really just a matter of interpretation. It was a matter of policy restraint, not to enforce in a way that was going to attract constitutional litigation and not to enforce in a way that was going to attract congressional preemption at the federal level. It's an interesting instance of an agency saying, we see what the law says, but we aren't going there.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Price was no longer commissioner at that time. Mr. Everett Taylor was commissioner at that time, so he had been appointed, he had, I think he's speaking about the past tense of this. We never, as a state back then, did it.
Yes. Yes, and I think that's clear.
Is that clear?
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
I can clarify if he was no longer in the position. That's easy to do.
Yeah, then,
Okay. Good. I'll make that change. All right. So the second, moving to worldwide combined reporting would not be constitutionally barred. So we have a constitutional discussion that takes in the Container and Barclay cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. I've added a quote from Justice Brennan's majority opinion last night, which is colorful, and I just thought that this really adds to the our sense of what the court was thinking. Allocating income among various taxing jurisdictions bears some resemblance, as we have emphasized throughout this opinion, to slicing a shadow. In the absence of a central coordinating authority, absolute consistency, even among taxing authorities whose basic approach to the task is quite similar, may just be too much to ask. So I think that there's often a sense amongst laymen that the Commerce Clause or the 14th Amendment requires absolute zero discrimination. But this quote and the quote in the next paragraph from the New Hampshire Supreme Court's Caterpillar decision are put in here to reflect the fact that the courts acknowledge that there's differential treatment, but they come to the conclusion that that differential treatment is within the range of reasonable behavior and is not, therefore, discriminatory in the constitutional sense. Discriminatory in the constitutional sense is not an absolute term that requires that there be zero differentiation. So in the next quote, you see the latter part. It says, The plaintiffs fail, however, to meet their burden in proving discrimination. And although New Hampshire's unitary apportionment formula may not apportion income perfectly, the federal Constitution does not require mathematical exactitude, only a rough approximation. So they had said in the earlier part of that merely acknowledging that there is differential treatment does not rise to a constitutional problem of discrimination. I thought these two quotes added a good bit to our narrative.
And the justices were speaking federally, correct?
In the first quote at the top of page 10, that's Justice Brennan, which is indicated at the bottom of page 9 for the Supreme Court. In the quotation set off in the middle of page 10, that's the New Hampshire Supreme Court in Caterpillar. Okay. All right. Anything further on this constitutional? Basically, what the constitutional discussion says is we're not constrained one way or the other. That isn't the problem. Okay, number 3, simple and declarative transfer pricing exists. I've added, there are 4 paragraphs here. 3 of these were provided by Matt and Kevin, Mr. Foley and Mr. Kennedy, excuse me. And then I added the second paragraph yesterday. The purpose of the second paragraph is to reflect the comments that Mr. Kennedy was making at the end of our meeting last week. And I'll just read them quickly. It must be emphasized that transfer pricing is not inherently bad. In fact, it's actually necessary and even mandatory. It is common in distributing the economic burdens for shared economic benefits across a range of affiliated entities of a variety of expenses or investments incurred for research and development, intellectual property, shared brand development and marketing, and a broad range of other expenditures, particularly intangibles. These are the same sort of benefits procured at a cost from non-affiliated or arm's-length suppliers of goods and services. A clear analogy can be found in the normal practice of franchise operations in which the franchisee contractually commits to share in a variety of expenses and investments made by the franchisor. So that's new language as of last night. Mr. Foley, does that fit with everything that you've... Okay. Good. Sorry to labor that. I just wanted to, I did say in my memo last night that anything that got added late on, I would point to. So we're good with 3? Number 4, transfer pricing may create an unlevel playing field. And I think this is very important because 3 and 4 acknowledge core beliefs of the proponents of worldwide combined reporting. These are truths. Yes, Representative Valerie.
While it's unknown what level exists, I believe we also discussed that it's unknowable.
Correct. Correct. And in number 6, you'll find that the caption has been amended to include the last 3 words. Method is unknown and probably unknowable.
And I'm just suggesting that perhaps in paragraph 3 that in the second sentence at the beginning, it is unknown, comma, and unknowable. And likely unknowable.
I'm fine with that. Everyone else? And likely unknowable. Sounds good. So that's in the first paragraph of item 4 in the 4th line.
I'm just looking at
Right
this
here.
page and it seems, all right. See, yours is on 4. Yours says 3. Are you using the same sheet as the rest of us? Maybe not.
Jordan, your papers are down there. That's the last version. That seems to be where you've been hanging out. Sorry, I thought that was your address.
That was a very funny joke, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
If you're saying it was in number 3 also.
I went around the corner of my barn during the weekend when I was doing yard work, and on the back door of an unoccupied barn, I found a FedEx package at the door. It was addressed to somebody with a different number on a different street. So I took it over to her. So we got to stay on our toes.
So it's gonna be on number 4.
It's number 4.
Okay, all right, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, you added.
All right. So to the top of page 12, item 5. New Hampshire currently taxes foreign income generated by businesses subject to the business profits tax. So this hits the foreign dividends and the GILTI.
Not to parse some words here, but it says taxes foreign incomes generated by business subject to the business profits tax. That would be only U.S. multinational corporations here in the United States are subject to this, correct? Or are you saying all foreign income generated?
All foreign, Mr. Foley, help me with this. It's all foreign income that is repatriated to the United States. And I could imagine that a foreign parent might have a subsidiary in the United States that might have a further subsidiary in a foreign country. So I think generalizing doesn't work. It's from any of these foreign affiliates of a unitary group to the extent that the funds are repatriated into the U.S.
Okay,
Is that fair? Okay. So I believe we're accurately stated.
okay.
Yes, Representative Lawler.
Yeah, and at the same time, we do not need to continually use New Hampshire because somebody created a glossary of terms that,
That was part of mine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that glossary of terms is something that should be lauded just a little bit, or comment made as to its appropriateness for inclusion.
Okay, so you'll address that in a little bit, or you want to address it right now? Okay.
I'm just saying, this is a good place for it, right? That's all. It came to the front of my mind, so I said it.
Yes, and Representative
These are the
Schamberg,
copies.
let's pass these out while we're referring to it.
Last page in, I think, is the.
Okay. And Representative Ullery, have you had a chance to read this glossary?
I glanced over it last night, yeah.
And does it look good to you?
I didn't peruse it, I just,
Okay.
first read exam.
So arm's length principle, unitary business principle, worldwide combined reporting, water's edge combined reporting. And we had some discussion last week on that kind of topic about the use of the term transfer pricing, which is a term of art in the accounting world, versus using certain other terms like profit shifting or abusive, that you'll find in quotes in several places where they've been used. So where an advocate has used them, it's part of what they told us. Where the report uses those terms, they're in quotations.
And as we learned, the transfer price, the so-called transfer pricing is merely the transfer of a fungible resource available to any corporation engaged in that particular activity. It's not done by a particular corporation for a particular purpose.
Exactly. It's an accounting entry and usually a transfer of funds between affiliated entities. Okay. Finding number 6, the revenue impact of changing to the worldwide combined reporting method is. Yes.
Go back to Representative Ulrich. Are we gonna, just for the minutes here, where are we gonna include, this will just be, are we gonna include those definitions in there? Is that what you wanted? No, okay, thank you. That's good.
Okay.
Yep.
So finding number 6, any comments here? And again, this, we've added the words and probably unknowable.
Where is it? There it is.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This particular paragraph does clear out the confusion, or not confusion. It eliminates any source of confusion that the transfer pricing is purely for X purpose as opposed to merely existing. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I think that's certainly the purpose. Okay, other questions? Now, finding number 7 was newly included yesterday. So this goes beyond the portion of the findings that were prepared by Mr. Foley and Mr. Kennedy and comes from our discussions. At least 4 other states in the past half dozen years or so have evaluated proposals to adopt WWCR and have rejected these proposals. So this is a very brief review of recent proposals that were in the state of Indiana, Minnesota, Maine, and Rhode Island. And the purpose here is to reflect that the commission is well aware of proposals and discussions in other states. We're not alone. Also, to distinguish those proposals from what's being considered here and characterize them very briefly in about a sentence each, and ultimately to draw the conclusion that in the 40 years or so that that we're talking about, there has been no state that has reverted to worldwide combined reporting and no current momentum in that direction. Are we set on that one? And finally, finding 8 also has been added to reflect the Commission's discussions. The Commission has heard of no credible methodology for effectively estimating the potential state tax revenue to be gained from WWCR and has concluded that any estimates of which we are aware represent broad conjecture without a sound factual foundation. And this cites the study by Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, ITEP, as well as the rebuttal from the Tax Foundation. Anybody who wants to delve into this, there's direct citations of those articles, and it does not attempt to weigh in on and participate in the debate, just to draw the conclusion that there is no consensus on how a state might even rationally approach an effort to estimate the impact on potential tax revenues.
Mr. Chairman, may I bring something up? You said it is not, there is no conclusion, yet the statement has heard of no credible methodology. Doesn't that say that the reports that have been developed, are you saying that they are not credible?
Yes.
And you're saying that the tax foundation's position is the credible one? That's the impression I'm getting here.
Yes on the first, no on the second. So what this says, it reflects certainly my conclusion that the tax foundation has effectively demolished the ITEP estimates. What the tax foundation has not done is identified an alternative method. So what's been offered as estimates are not credible, and we lack any credible alternative. We don't have, the commission has heard of no credible methodology and has concluded any estimates of which we're aware represent broad conjecture without a sound factual foundation. So it's not that the tax foundation has given us a way of estimating. It's simply shown us that one particular effort to estimate doesn't cut it.
The words that the tax foundation used, I believe, they used words versus finding the methodology of the ITEP or any other methodology. They have shown, where is that methodology wrong? I don't think they've shown that, the tax foundation. That's why I just sort of disagree with it. When you say no credible methodology, you're taking one organization that says this methodology is completely wrong. It doesn't have its foundations down right. Maybe it's the word no credible methodology that's got me stuck on this right now. Because I believe that the methodologies are appropriate or are good until someone can actually show using data, using a methodology to show me why is it wrong? Why is it not?
So I think we have two choices here. One is, again, the certainly it's been the effort to make sure that the findings speak for all of us. But this is, perhaps one of those things that Representative Schamberg may want to address in his minority report, if the rest of us agree. On the other hand, if we want to make a modification, we can do that. So I look to other members to react to what Representative Schamberg has just said. My personal view is the tax foundation's analysis of the ITEP estimates is absolutely convincing and demonstrates that the ITEP effort is not credible. And that's what this finding is intending to say. That's fairly strong, but it's not so much that we're trying to indict ITEP or any particular effort. It's simply to say that as we look across the universe, we see nothing that gives us something that we could actually utilize and rely upon. Okay, Representative Valerie, did you want to add?
No, the sentence that you just used sounds like something that, if you can remember it, might resolve the argument that Representative Schomburg is attempting to raise here, as that it indicates this research versus that research. This research resounds better than that research.
Mm-hmm.
And that may just be phraseology that would be appropriate, sir.
So I'm willing to look at softening the words a little bit so it doesn't sound like it's intended to be damning. But before I do that, Representative Schamberg, would that satisfy you? Or
If you can make it not sound so, as you say, damaging, because I remember we had Michael Mazeroff gave us a piece when he was talking about profits. Let's see here.
this is in a prior session of the legislature.
But he had mentioned that independent California estimate of potential gain from the WWCR is actually larger than the ITEP study. So there's other studies out there. Somehow, if we can make this, as you say, not so damaging.
So the Mazeroff, I'm aware of him and some of his work just from the collateral readings I've done, but it's not part of the record of this commission, and that doesn't preclude you from mentioning it in your minority, but you would want to indicate, where you're drawing that information from.
Do you have a suggestion?
So give me a moment here to just look at it. Well, is are we hung up on the word credible, or is it deeper than that?
No, I think it
How about workable?
sounds good.
Okay. Everyone's okay? All right. Good then. Um,
Thank you.
so I think that for anybody who is coming to this commission's report from the outside, and they're looking at it, to really pick the meat out of it and scan through it, they jump right past the findings and testimony. I mean, rather the testimony and record, and they come to these bolded passages and they just read the 8 findings. I think they get a very good idea of what we determined. And again, I want to give a lot of thanks to Mr. Foley and Mr. Kennedy for helping us shape that up. Now, I think that the remaining part of the findings are less likely to require discussion, but let's just quickly. So the mitigating factors are the reduction of the federal corporate tax rate from 35 to 21 and the introduction of GILTI that both occurred in 2017 as part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. The third grouping is the arguments in support and against. I believe these are virtually unedited from the draft provided by Mr. Foley and Mr. Kennedy, and I'm satisfied with those as being a very crisp reduction. Not all arguments for and against, but those that are substantive and pivotal. Well, that takes us to the analysis. Now, of course, the analysis is where we actually take a stand as a commission, and this is where the minority report will diverge. I tried to be very brief and just bring it down to rationales, so not to repeat what's already been stated in the findings. And so we have 5 paragraphs. I did a little bit of addition to this last night. I would point in particular to the last paragraph. That's completely new last night. All methods of apportionment, just like geographic or separate entity accounting, are imperfect. And that's essentially what the courts from Brennan's passage and from the New Hampshire Caterpillar case passage acknowledge. They are proxies, devices, methodologies for triangulating in on a fair share taxation. They all embody trade-offs, and merely pointing to a flaw or limitation in any one method does not signify that any other method will achieve a better result. There will be trade-offs, there will be winners and losers amongst taxpayers, and there will be gains and losses for the state. But there's no generalization that will forecast reasonably how these will play out in practice prospectively. At the end of the discussion, on balance, the Commission finds that there is insufficient evidence to make such a radical change in New Hampshire's business tax policy as WWCR, given the many implications clearly present on the other side of the equation. Okay, does anybody have anything to add, subtract, or change from the analysis? And the recommendations, the purpose is to be absolutely succinct. Number 1, we recommend that New Hampshire not proceed with WWCR and therefore not with HB 121. And we acknowledge in the second recommendation, while the Commission does not recommend further study at this time, the Commission notes that there may in the future be alternative means available to the state of New Hampshire to address the incentives a unitary business might have to abuse transfer pricing methods for the purpose of shifting tax. This is, again, I think, very much trying to incorporate Mr. Kennedy's very constructive comment that we go one step beyond merely saying, don't adopt worldwide combined reporting, and acknowledge that there may still be developments in the future that we become aware of, especially if there is leadership at the federal level. Yes, Mr. Wong.
This is a question from a process standpoint. So the DRA being neutral and not having a position on either way, whether going with worldwide combined reporting or not, and then the recommendations and the analysis of the report is mainly proposing to that there's not sufficient information to change the current, I guess, taxing position for business profits tax purposes. I believe I might have to just check in, but just in case if we find that if DRA thinks that we're not able to sort of stand in that position, because just to that might might sort of put us in a position to say that the DRA does not approve of worldwide combined reporting, so we're not sort of jeopardizing our neutral position. How would we go about doing that?
Okay, that's a very good question. It's one I've been anticipating. And I think maybe it would be a good idea for me to phone and have a brief conversation with Commissioner Stepp, just to make sure I know exactly how she feels about it.
Right.
Ultimately, it's your judgment. I think that on one hand, you wear the hat of the DRA's representative. On the other hand, you're a member of the commission who's participated in the findings. If you come to the conclusion that, let's just say, for example, that the DRA stands behind every aspect of the report, accepting that it takes no stance on the recommendation itself, I think a supplemental statement to that effect would just be attached, right? Think of it this way. In a court, you have a majority position, you have a minority. You also have what are called concurring opinions, right? And sometimes concurring opinions say, I agree in part and dissent in part, whatever. So I think you can qualify your signing on. It still represents the report of the commission. Representative Valerie.
If I may address Mr. Wong, having seen the reports of other commissions and participated in other commissions, agencies routinely participate in commissions because of the effect of what that commission report may have upon the operation of the agency within the state. And it is understood that the agency does what the agency is told to do by law. The only thing that the agency is doing is making input as to their understanding of the effects, not whether they agree or disagree, but their understanding of the effects. So if you sign off on this report with or without a modification, you're only signing off that the agency has made input, and the agency agrees with the general analysis, not that they are advocating for one position or the other position, particularly since we have opposing position present.
So I think that's valuable, and key not to twist your arm one way or the other, but I defer to the judgment that you reach with the commissioner. But I would suggest just keep in mind our recommendation does not recommend action. It recommends not action, right? So I think there is a way in which it could be viewed as a neutral position to not change current law, and and we're also not recommending some specific follow-on. Representative Schamberg.
When you say it does not recommend action, it says here, we recommend that the pending bill be voted inexpedient to legislate. Does that put the DRA into a position that maybe should be discussed with the commissioner?
Well, that's precisely what we just said. It puts them in a position of discussing it with the commissioner and deciding what they're comfortable with.
So when we vote today, will the DRA have to make a vote on what's here right now?
Yes, because otherwise we don't have a forum.
The answer is yes. I'm going to ask everyone for an approval of the report, subject to several edits that we've made. And if the DRA then feels that it needs to qualify its position, it can do that with a supplemental statement that will be incorporated in, just as the minority report will be. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we've marched through the findings, the analysis, and the recommendations, but let's just pause and take in further comments. I know there's got to be some. Yes, Mr. Wong.
Just one more comment. Back to point number 6. The revenue impact of the worldwide combined reporting for point A says that the DRA does not have the capability to determine the amount of tax generated by the state's current method of taxing foreign income. I'm not sure if the word capability is an accurate representation. Is that the certain fields in the form are not currently mapped by the system, and so if we map those fields, we'll be able to calculate the tax impact, but currently it's not mapped. And if we do it now, we won't have the data from the previous returns that were submitted.
You're making a good technical point. So this is on page 12,
That's
6A.
Yep.
And you're highlighting the capability. Maybe it's not a lack of capability, but a lack of. I'm glad to have you supply me some words that would make this more specifically accurate. Just a little editorial sidebar. Nothing's impossible, right? I was horrified when I was reading the Rhode Island study, this 90-page study, at what they did to their taxpayers. Apparently, if I'm understanding it correctly, they required every business tax filer in Rhode Island to prepare 2 additional pro formas. So that's a unitary filing state. And for 2 tax years, as a prelude to the study, their way of trying to get, the data that we were discussing before was to require the filers to prepare 3 tax returns and file 1 as their official return and file 2 more on an information basis, just so that the state could get data and start to track it. I mean, wow. If that was something that somebody here proposed, I would be an absolute hell no. Yes, Representative Ulrey.
Would Mr. Wong be amiable to inserting the word currently in that sentence, which indicates the possibility of future modification?
Right. Probably something like currently unable to fully determine
Yes.
the amount of tax generated by the state's current method of tax.
So the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration is not currently able. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, it's not currently able to fully determine the amount of tax generated.
So we're merely striking out does not have the capability and putting in instead is not currently able. That's fine with me. Representative Ulrey.
No.
Oh, okay. That was an assent. Okay. Good. Well, thank you for giving me the latitude to do a lot of drafting. Again, thank you to Mr. Foley and Mr. Kennedy for giving me the meat of the findings. I'll look around once more to see if there are further comments, and then I'll turn it over to Representative Schamberg for anything he might want to say. I haven't read his current report, but it stands on its own. It's his document. So, Representative Schamberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to first of all, thank all the members of the commission for finding the time and the research they did and for this worldwide combined reporting commission. I'd like to thank the chair for undertaking the organization of this commission report. And to thank Jen for her guidance as we stumbled along. One of the items that was just delivered is the minority position. It's 7 pages long, and I do not think there was much change other than, I can't remember any of the changes I made from the original one, but this is the one I would like to submit along with the attachments that Jen capably ran off. The Caterpillar decision, the Lloyd Price letter, the letter from Avi Johan of Michigan Law concerning questions that were asked about reporting, and the glossary. It's a two-sided page, the arm's length principle, the Unitary business principle, worldwide combined reporting, and water's edge combined reporting. Just wanted to make sure that this is somewhere attached.
That's fine. I have no objection to the attachments. I would just make a parenthetical comment here. There is a letter dated October 18th, heading Michigan Law University of Michigan from Reuven Aveyona.
Yeah.
It's addressed to me, but first time I've seen it is when Representative Schamberg asked Jen 4 to circulate it. So it was not directed to me, although it is addressed on the page to me. So.
Okay. And concerning, I'm sorry, what? Okay. Concerning the report today, I had developed a response from a little excerpt from an earlier note you sent out to us. And I did not see your final report till 9:15 last night when I had finished my. So, but I think I hit the points that you have brought up today. In regard to the minority report versus various position statements of the majority, the minority report responds that there is a flaw in the water's edge method that shows domestic New Hampshire businesses have been competing at an economic disadvantage since 1986 with foreign multinational corporations, which allow these organizations to reduce their tax liability no matter how much business they do in the granted state. And as a result, domestic companies face a disproportionate tax liability while the state is losing revenue to pay for state services. And what supports the minority position, the statements? First, the majority and minority in statements and in written forms say that transfer pricing exists, that transfer pricing and profit shifting exists, but at an unknown levels and amounts, and that transfer pricing may create an unlevel playing field. The second support statement from reporting sources, articles submitted for review by this commission from the Tax Justice Network, CNN, Tax Games, ITEP, and others describe profit shifting to tax havens of lower tax liability. A third source of support for the minority position is the IRS that just launched IR-2023-194, new initiatives using the Inflation Reduction Act funding to ensure large corporations pay taxes owed. This includes large foreign-owned corporations' transfer pricing initiative. These foreign companies report losses or exceedingly low margins year after year through the improper use of transfer pricing to avoid reporting appropriate amounts of U.S. profits to the U.S. government. If this is happening at the federal level, with these foreign multinationals who have substantial subsidiaries like New Hampshire does with 424 at last count. There is a saying, where there is smoke, there is a fire. These mentioned sources from above at least indicate there is an unlevel playing field that can be applied to New Hampshire domestic businesses who pay BP taxes on 100% of their taxable profits, when the provisions of Water's Edge allow foreign multinationals with subsidiaries to obscure the full picture of their activities in New Hampshire and from the DRA, because these companies are not required to account for their operations outside the United States beyond Water's Edge. My friend, the chair of this commission, should have been a football coach because of the plays that can be called in a game. I knew I'd get a little out of you. One play that is called by a coach is misdirection. Getting players to go one way while the ball carrier is going another way. In the 1999 Caterpillar Inc. versus New Hampshire DRA, the appeal involved only questions of federal constitutional law, especially the Commerce Clause, and if royalty and interest payments by foreign members to domestic members are to be included as income of the Water's Edge Group because they represent value earned by the Water's Edge Group that is not otherwise captured. The answer was it is taxable and reported under the Water's Edge and not in violation of the Commerce Clause. Yet, the misdirection play of the majority is trying to argue that the Water's Edge method is not unconstitutional in regard to foreign affiliates with subsidiaries in the United States. The New Hampshire Supreme Court said, the nature of the Water's Edge formula requires that foreign subsidiaries be treated differently from domestic subsidiaries. Most significantly, the latter income is subject to taxation while the former's income is not, close quote. The New Hampshire court also said in this same case, quote, in 1986, the legislature adopted the Water's Edge method, eliminating overseas business organizations from subjection to the business profits tax, close quote. That is why the fourth source of support for the minority is the New Hampshire Supreme Court when it said, we point out, Water's Edge method was adopted for the benefit of foreign businesses. Prior to 1986, New Hampshire utilized worldwide combined reporting in which the net income of all members of the Unitary group, domestic and foreign, was included in the tax base, close quotes. It was unfair for the state not to enforce the worldwide combined reporting law from 1981 to 1986. The new law in 1986, the Water's Edge, seems to have changed an equal and level playing field law for all into an unequal law for domestic businesses. That is why the minority is saying that there is a competitive disadvantage facing domestic companies. That is why there is a question of the rule of law. Those domestic taxpayers of BPT are treated differently from foreign companies. This is unconstitutional. The foreign multinational company's competitive advantage, by its very nature, has the tendency to erode trust in the equity of our government and thus in the government itself, making Water's Edge BPT an unlevel playing field. There should not be tiers in our tax system any more than there should be two tiers of justice. This is anti-democratic and anti-free market. And I appreciate you letting me read that, and I'll make sure that I do send a copy on to Jen so that she can, or will this be recorded anywhere else other than?
We are recorded.
We are recording, Jen? I will just make sure you get a copy.
I believe we're recorded.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope you didn't mind me saying you're a football coach, or you could have been a good one.
I'll bite my tongue. Okay. This is why there's opportunity for a minority report. And I do think that those who read both will understand that there is a different understanding of the reach of the Caterpillar decision, for example. Any further comments? Okay, well, I don't know exactly what the protocol is with the commission, but I think I'm going to ask for a vote to adopt the majority report. Yes.
I would like to address some of the, uh, the text that's provided in the glossary from Representative Schamberg, if I may.
Yes, which I have not even read yet. So. And by the way, our deadline to file is on Wednesday, November 1st. We have several edits that we've already discussed. If there's something further that somebody sees, it can be brought up and incorporated within the next 48 hours. But I would say it's our intention that we're basically going to resolve whether this is a finished product as closely as we can. So with that comment, I feel the same way about anything attached to Representative Schamberg's. Feel free to go ahead and address it.
So the first point I wanted to bring up for discussion is the I guess the definition for the unitary business principle. Written here is the principle is applicable to corporations that own and control subsidiaries. For tax purposes, corporations and or taxing authorities are allowed to treat integrated corporation with subsidiaries as if a single taxable entity. For tax purposes, the entire enterprise, corporations and subsidiaries are taxed as one. Within the RSA 77-A, the BPT statute itself, there is a definition for unitary business in 77-A:1 Roman 14. And it's defined that within our statutes that a unitary business means one or more related business organizations engaged in business activity both within and without this state, among which there exists a unity of ownership, operation, and use, or an interdependence in their functions. I was wondering if it's better in terms of not creating any kind of source of definition that we replace the first three sentences of this in the glossary with the exact definition from the statute, so as not to create any kind of confusion or create any confusion with taxpayers, tax preparers, administrators.
So that the statutory definition stands on its own and there's nobody trying to figure out and parse whether they're the same or different. Without having read these, I just wonder, first of all, Jen, when we assemble the report, anything that Representative Schamberg has elected to attach to his minority report should be marked in a way where it's clearly an appendix to the minority report. In other words, this isn't speaking for the majority. But I wonder whether the glossary is actually helpful or should be excluded. If it's included, I think it needs to be made clear it's part of the minority report, because I haven't read it, haven't evaluated it, and I think that questions of the sort that Mr. Wong has just brought up, that might just be one example where we would later wonder whether we had really combed through this carefully. Representative Allery.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just a comment to Representative Schomburg. We've done exactly what Mr. Wong suggested with other items in the majority report to clarify and make sure that we were using consistent language. As a matter of fact, our last meeting on our pricing transfer was based specifically on using commonly accepted accounting terms. Just as
Right. We're certainly not trying to create and introduce ambiguity.
I have no problem with using the RSA definition. The arm's length principle, is that in the RSA anywhere? Or?
Well, I think we would lean on federal law for that. Mr. Foley.
Yeah. For arm's length, 482.
For the statute, from what I can, based on my memory, I don't have the statute in front of me. I do not think that the New Hampshire statute specifically mentions arm's length, but it might make reference to the Internal Revenue Code that that would require arm's length. Am I right?
So again, Representative Schamberg, I'm unable to even react to these. I haven't read them. But I would ask you to consider carefully whether you really think that they add to your minority report. We're not wading into a territory here that, where we're defining the terms. These are terms that have been in common usage for decades, and there's plenty of collateral source for how they should be properly interpreted. So I would encourage you to delete them, but I leave it to you.
I guess there's a way to delete it. Just you go like this,
Yeah.
and then it's off the page. All
Yeah.
right.
Well, if we can agree to that, that's probably then we don't need to look so closely.
Well, that's unfortunate because there's a lot of good ammunition in here.
Then I'll not make any further comments on the other parts of the glossary.
You're so nice.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Fair enough. Okay, I think it's understood then that they will
Right.
not be
That-
part of it. Okay, very good. Okay. Jen, help me with the process. Do we do this as a matter of a formal vote, or do we just simply the members succeed to the report? Okay. Okay, very good. So I'm going to invite a motion to adopt the commission report as drafted with the very few edits that were described verbally.
Mr. Chair, I would move to adopt the report as made with the edits and additions made today, subject to Scribner's review of the report that we've made with an attached minority report that is unedited by the board in total.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Second? Seconded by Senator Murphy. Just brief discussion, I would expect to incorporate those edits and turn it today. And,
Hasn't had a copy yet.
well, I mean, I think I can incorporate the edits into something that you can see online, right? And I assume that we can then leave it in Jen's hands to make sure that it's properly filed with the Speaker, the President of the Senate, et cetera, by Wednesday. Yes. Yes, I meant as a final draft today to incorporate these edits so that everyone would get an eyeball on it today. Yeah. Solely to the chair, and more or less 24 hours, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Foley down there has a question.
Mr. Foley.
Not a question, but just I'll do a similar thing for the Society of CPAs just to see if we will maybe join Keene with kind of his supplemental statement just to confirm where our stance will be. And I will communicate with Kevin that that's ongoing just to see, or Mr. Kennedy, to the extent he feels the obligation to say the same, where we had each been neutral
Sure.
on the recommendation. So I just want to clarify that.
I think that's fine. So I'll be looking in this motion, this vote, for assent to the report, adoption of the report, and noted that there may be a caveat coming from either or both. And we do have a quorum. And
Chair.
Mr. Kennedy will also be asked to confirm his assent when the redraft is turned out. Yes, Mr. Representative Valerie.
We could add that caveat that the adoptions report does not recommend, does not indicate approval of the recommendations, merely a statement of facts of the actions of the committee. As
Yeah.
part of the affirming
So
motion.
that's a suggested way of going about it. I leave it to you.
Yeah, I think that's fair as long as it preserves our the DRA's neutral position. We're not prepared to vote in any way in terms of the recommendations of adopting or not going forward.
This is understood, and it's also understood, I should point out, that on November 9th, the House Ways and Means Committee will meet to deal with its final 3 or 4 retained bills, including HB 121, and I'm sure the DRA will be present, may be asked to speak. So, understood. Okay.
Hang on, I'll get this motion down right. Motion to adopt. Like commission.
Motion to adopt the commission's report as drafted with the several verbal.
With incorporated edits and with minority approach report attached. And was there anything else?
Yes, subject to Scrivener's review.
What's that?
Subject to Scrivener's review.
Scrivener with a V.
That's you, Jen.
Anything else?
And adoption of this report does not
Report does not.
reflect. I'm gonna use big words, or do I have to keep it small? Approbation or affirmation of the recommendation.
Or what was the second one?
No, I don't. I would not
Should I make it
include
simple?
that. Now you're altering the motion, I think. No, I would leave that out. I would let anybody who wants a qualifying addendum to choose their own wording.
That's fair too.
So,
Trying to make it simple
and
have one.
and the motion doesn't include the minority report. The motion is to adopt the report of the commission. We all understand that the minority report stands on its own, but will be accompanied. Okay. So the motion does not include the caveats. It does not include the minority report. It's the document.
With a
We've got-
qualifying what? Position?
That's not part of the motion.
That's not. Okay,
Right. The motion doesn't include,
so we're just going with,
it's to adopt the commission's report with the edits that have been verbally incorporated.
okay.
And we may then collaterally get a qualifying statement from the DRA and or the CPA Association. Is that fair?
Yeah, now I got what you want.
Okay, I do believe that was Representative Ullery's initial motion. We've clarified it. We have not amended it. Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Mr. Wong.
Yes, with the qualifier.
With those qualifiers. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Young. Yes, yes, Senator Murphy. Yes, Mr. Foley. Representative Ullery.
Representative Schomburg, yes. Yes.
Yes. Representative Schomburg.
No,
And the chair votes yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. All right. And as I said, we will poll Mr. Kennedy and add him as an addendum to the roll call. Thank you, gentlemen. I think this has taken a lot of patience, and I appreciate that everyone here remained dedicated and in the saddle right to the end. So thank you for that. Is there anything further that anybody would like to say before we adjourn? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that of all the commissions and committees I've sat upon, this was the most thorough, and I appreciate the dedication and commitment to getting a very, very detailed look at this issue. I have certainly learned a lot about it, and I appreciate your work in moving things along.
Well, thank you very much. I guess when we look at something once every 40 years, it deserves some thoroughness. All right. Very good. With that, the commission is convened, is adjourned, and that is our last meeting, and the report will be filed by Wednesday. Thank you.
11